Hi guys, it is Kelly here and I am back with another video. Today I'm going to be using some newer stamps from InkBlot Shop. This is the Arts and Crafts Icons and Arts and Crafts Sentiments. These are amazing sets for crafters. I totally love them. They just have a little bit of everything that you could possibly be using. Just such a wonderful set by Tiffany. So basically I have everything laid out here. I'm doing a one layer card. Because it's been a week. It has been a week. And so I just wanted something that I really just could sit and color and would occupy my time. And so anyway, I'm stamping these down in intense black ink from Simon Says Stamp. And this is just my first layer. I kind of have everything laid out. I know there's going to be a couple things I'm going to need to mask. But so everything that's going to be in the foreground is what I'm stamping here now. And I'm going to be doing Copic coloring. That's why we're using the intense black ink. So I ended up stamping it twice just because I was kind of being lazy and I wasn't really giving it good pressure. Like I said, I wasn't really into putting in a whole lot of effort. Thankfully, cute stamps and Copic markers, make that pretty easy. So I'm using I think I used Eclipse masking paper just I didn't want to have to move anything or put them on acrylic blocks or worry about any of that stuff. So I'm just covering up the areas I know that I want to create masks for, that little piece of washi tape at the top, and then the two paintbrushes. I'm also going to create one for the colored pencil that's in the top center, because I want to be able to lay another one over top of it. I trimmed those out and then I'm just putting those in place so I can finish off the rest of my stamping, because right now the right hand side of the card looks a little bit fuller than the left, and I wanted to make sure that everything was balanced. Also, like, accurate representation of the way that my desk currently looks. For real, my desk is a disaster area pretty much all the time. So there's a cute little envelope that is in the icon set, the Arts and Crafts icons, and then also the ruler, which I thought would be super cute to just kind of have laying out. I wanted to fill in a little bit with these sequins. There's also, let me pull this thing out, stand by. There's also buttons, I think. Buttons and sequins. Yeah, that's what, and a couple little hearts. Just adorable. But anyway, so I wanted to use that to kind of fill in, and then we're going to go straight into the background. I toyed with the idea, this is a very long video, but then again, I've been starving you guys for about, I don't know, the past week and a half, right? It's been that long since I posted a video. So I figure originally I was going to split it into two because I thought that would be more manageable. And then I just decided I'm just going to go ahead and talk for 30. I'm just going to go ahead and talk for 30 minutes, because if I split it where it made sense, it was going to be like a 10-minute and a 20-minute video. There wasn't a good way to split it like directly in the middle. So for the background, I wanted it to be a wooden desk. Even though I don't work on a wooden desk, I work on a glass desk. Not that you can ever see it, because I typically work on my grid paper from Simon Says Stamp, which I totally love, or my Ranger craft mat, which is permanently like glued. I did it with glue dots. But I thought it would be super cute to do like a wood grain background for this. And so basically I filled in the entire background with my lightest color, and then I'm going to go in and start adding in some shadows. I color as if my light source is in the top right hand corner, so then all of my shadows are going to be down to the bottom left. So I went in and did all of that first, just because I thought that it would be easier that way. These pencils, for some reason, I could not figure out this shadow originally. I put it on top. That doesn't make any sense. Don't do that. Do as I say, not as I do. And then like the kind of the like the paint blob in the middle, that is actually how it comes in the set. The messy art makes a happy heart, which is totally true, by the way, is a separate stamp set from the blob, but they are, the way that the stamp set's laid out, they sit together, and I just was like, that's adorable, and I see no reason to split them up. I'm going to stamp them exactly that way. So anyway, it has been, it's been a week, and I really had a hard time kind of creating anything or really doing the voiceovers, because I do talk to you guys. One of the comments that I get probably more often than not is that you guys love how real I am, and that means that I talk to you about my life. and I really didn't know how to have the conversation about the things that have been going on in my life. And so I would sit down to do a voiceover, and then I just couldn't bring myself to do it, because I think that, YouTube is a escape, and you want to come here and hear funny stories and pretty things, and life isn't always funny stories and pretty things. It just isn't. So, well, we'll come back to this in a minute. So anyway, I'm doing the Woodgrain. Basically, I'm going to put down, this is one of my midtones, an E55, and I'm just, doing little whirls and, little sketchy lines, something that's going to create that wood grain look. I have an entire video on how to do this, which shows you the entire process. I will link to that at the end if you really want to see an in-depth tutorial on how to do it. This is just kind of like a super simple flyby. Here I'm doing the next midtone, which is an E57, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm laying in the shadows first because it's easier that way, and these are what we call cast shadows. So anytime an object is sitting top of another object, it's going to have a shadow, and that's what's happening here. All of these objects are sitting on top of the desk. That's why they all have shadows. And then from there, I'm not going to put as much of this darker color throughout the whole background, but I am going to put it throughout the whole background just like I did before, sometimes following the lines that I've already put down, and sometimes not. So anyway, back to real life. So most of you know that in my real life, I work for a police department. I'm a police, fire, EMS dispatcher. I am also a case manager for a detective bureau, and then I do crafts, and I actually also just recently acquired a new job. We'll talk about that too. We got lots to talk about, lots to cover. Good thing we got 30 minutes to do it, right? But anyway, so last week, I want to say it was like, my worst nightmare, but it wasn't because of the way it ended. So last week, one of my police officers was shot on a traffic stop. Still kind of, I guess, processing that whole thing. He is going to be fine. He was shot in the knee. It was through and through. His surgery went amazing, and should make a complete recovery. But there is no way for me to communicate to you how that felt in the moment when I didn't know what it was, when I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, or what that's like for the other officers that are there who are also my family. There's no way for me to tell you that. And so yeah, the things that you dread while you're sitting on the radio, but also really ultimately, he was totally in the right spot at the right time. God utilized him to save somebody else's life. And it is amazing. It's an amazing thing to see, especially as somebody with faith. It's so, it's such a sombering experience. So anyway, so that happened. In the same week, well, let's talk about this card. Let's talk about this card real quick. So what I'm doing here is I'm using my darkest color to just kind of extend a little bit of that darkness into the wood grain. And then I'm going to switch back to that E57 and really kind of extend those lines because I want that shadow to be noticeable even after I go over it with my other colors. And yes, I'm giving the blob a shadow because I wanted it to look like a gigantic pile of paint. That's what I wanted it to look like. So I am still giving that a shadow. So anywho, so in the midst of all of these other things that were happening, everybody has their work friend. That's the person that you go to work to see. And when you see you're on the schedule together, they're the best thing ever. And, you eat dinner together and have conversation, and they just make your day better just by them being the person that you're working with. And so my person actually got hired on in another department. And so it was his last day as well. And that was just a couple of days after the other incident. So that was a bit trying. And I will miss him terribly. He was, we were very lucky to have him in our department. I was very lucky to be his friend. So anyway, so was processing that. Now, we're using the lightest color to go through everything and just kind of blend that out. Not that it's going to completely cover up the wood grain. It won't. But it will blend it so it doesn't make it as harsh. I'm going to go back in with my colorless blender because I'm a sloppy colorist. You guys know this if you watch my videos. I'm a sloppy colorist, and so I did get some brown in some areas that I didn't want. So I'm just going to use the colorless blender to kind of clean up those areas. Colorless blender, yeah, get one of those. If you have Copic markers, and you know what, I've never used it with other alcohol markers, but I would almost be willing to bet that they would probably work as well. I know a lot of companies that come out with alcohol markers don't necessarily come out with that colorless blender, and it is amazing if you are sloppy. And I am. So anyway, now we're going to start working on some of the other coloring. I've picked out some grays. I will be doing the metal portion of my... What are those? I don't even know. There's probably a word for that, guys. What do they call that on a paintbrush? The little metal portion that they sit into. I don't know what they call it. There's probably a name. I don't know what it is. Anyway, using the grays to color that, also to color the blades of the scissors, and then also the tube of paint. So I'm just going to be kind of working through all three of those as we go through this. So anyway, because that friend left, see, it's going to be we're going to be on this emotional roller coaster ride for this, for this video, because, so that friend left, and, he had a cookout at his house. And, while we were at the cookout, you know, just all kind of hanging out and eating and whatever, he says to me, $20 says you won't jump in the neighbor's pool. And I was like, $20 is not enough. And so two other guys I work with kicked another 20. So legit, for $60, fully clothed, I jumped in a random stranger's pool. Yeah, worth it, right? I mean, it was $60. Like, all I had to do was jump in a pool. I mean, it wasn't like he was asking me to jump in like a dirty pool or like I don't know, vat of acid. I mean, it was just a regular pool, and I had dry clothes in the car. So yeah, totally earn $60 that way. And I'm good with it. I'm okay. I'm okay with that outcome. So I guess I would rather be, as one of the officers and I were talking about it, I was like, I would rather be the crazy one than the boring one. Like, that's pretty much like my motto. I would rather be that. There are worse things to be than a little bit crazy. So we did that, and that was fun. I'm trying to think of what else my week involved. Today I took my son swimming, and he does not like water in his face. He doesn't like water in his face at all. So we went to my childhood friends. Still actually lives next door to my mom and dad. I'm adding some gray shading to these little sequins as well, because I don't want to have to worry about pulling out 18 different colors to color them. So I'm just going to do all the shading with the grays, and then I'll put one color over top of them. But so anyway, we had a pool. If you watch the flamingo video, the Neat and Tangled flamingo video, you know we had a pool and how I almost drowned in it. See what good friends we are. See all the stories. See all the stories that we share on YouTube. But anyway, so I don't have a pool now. I don't have a pool currently. I'm hoping to maybe get one in the future, because I really do miss having one for myself as well as my son. Moving on to these green ones. So typically when I go into any kind of design, you're kind of looking to work in odd numbers. Because that's more appealing to the eye. If you are working in pairs, or even numbers, your brain automatically tries to pair things. So odd numbers is something that's just a little bit more comfortable for your eye to settle on. And also, I lost my scissors. Can you even believe this? I've had those scissors for 8 years. These Fisker scissors that I always use. I've had them for 8 years. No joke. And I have no idea what happened to them. My kid probably ran off with them, if we're being honest with each other here. But anyway, I had these tonic ones that I had not really ever used, because, you go with what you know. Everybody likes to be comfortable, and I was comfortable with my Fisker scissors. But so anyway, I did try these ones. They are by Tonic, and they are lime green. The handle is lime green. So this kind of just made sense to me to color these this way. and I actually do kind of like them. It's a little bit of an adjustment for the handle, because I think we all just kind of like what we know. But yeah, so anyway, took my kid swimming at my parents' and neighbor's house, childhood friend's house. And so we get over there, and apparently she has not used her pool cover at all the entire summer. And so the water is, hovering somewhere around like 65 degrees. It was so cold. It was so cold, but we're already there. He's in his swim trunks and his little swim shirt, all Spider-Man'd out with his little arm floaties, because I ain't trying to drown him like I tried to drown myself when I was a kid. And so I like stick my toe in the water, and I was like, we're in trouble because it's so cold. And so my neighbor Amy says to me, she was like, you're better off just cannonballing it like when we were kids. And so then my son gets super excited because he thinks mommy's just gonna, jump in the pool. And so I asked him, I was like, should I just jump? And he was like, yeah, do it. So that's what I did, and it was just as cold. But then he jumped off the ladder to me, so that was super cute. He's learning, how to float in the pool and how to doggy paddle. And so that's how we spent our afternoon, which is why this video is getting up a little later than I had originally anticipated. And not that I don't love you guys, but worth it to spend the afternoon with my son. So we did that. And then, we got ice cream tonight. So that was like something that was like a little bit of a fun little treat, for him. I swear to you, he gets like the most, this is not judgmental. If this is what you like, if this is the ice cream you like, it's fine. Go with God. Do you. But he gets like the most boring ice cream ever. Like all he ever wants is like a twist cup. He doesn't even want the cone. He wants a twist cup. And I'm over here like, can I get my whatever the extreme blizzard is that has like 18 different types of chocolate in it. Or tonight I got a banana split. And normally I'm a grazer. That's what my mama calls it. Like I eat a little bit of everything. I ate that whole thing. I ate the whole banana split. I ain't even mad about it. And I even had like our Dairy Queen, swaps out the, like the, whatever the thing is, like normally it's strawberry, pineapple, and hot fudge. And there's something just really, really super weird to me about putting pineapple on, ice cream. I don't know why. Like if you eat pineapple on your ice cream, please let me know below. I would like to know, if that's a thing that people are into, because it's not a thing I'm into. So I had them swap it out for caramel, and that was a good life choice on my part, I think. So back to this card. So I want the paint to be shiny. The paint is wet. I want it to be shiny. So you can see I'm leaving very, very large highlights, extremely large highlights. And it's because I just know I'm heavy-handed. And if I leave smaller highlights, I will eat them. I will eat them up. And so as I'm going through and doing it, I am leaving the edge of the lightest color. Each time I'm not taking it all the way to the white area, except for on the outside edge. And that's because I know as I move back through, you guys, you know me, lightest, darkest, darkest to lightest. So when I'm coming back from darkest to lightest, I will start to fill in some of that space. I am not going to just leave these huge white gaping areas. But I do want to make sure that there is some darkness around the edges, especially since if you had a puddle of paint, it would automatically start drying around the edges. Pinks are kind of hard. I picked pink because I love pink. I love hot pink. And especially since it's summer and I'm in a summertime mood. And but the RVs are really kind of hard to work with sometimes. So if you seem to have a hard time blending them, it ain't you. It's the markers. It's not you. So I am starting to fill in those areas, making sure to, do a little bit of flicking here and there. Mostly it's going to be kind of a stark line, honestly, because that's how highlights look in real life. It isn't necessarily something that's super feathered. This one in the top right-hand corner, I feathered too much. I did too much flicking into my white area. That was my own fault. We will fix it at the end. So if you're doing this, if you're giving this a try, don't sweat it. Just like the one in the top left-hand corner. That highlight's gone. I mean, I almost completely covered up all of the white. There's like a little sliver. But because the RVs are a little bit more difficult to work with as far as blending, basically the RV02 pretty much lightens up the RV04 so much that they don't really blend together. So I am having to go back and make some adjustments until I was happy with the blending. Don't worry about that if you feel like you need to go back in. I mean, I don't care how many times you got to color something, as long as you're aware of how much ink you're putting down so that you don't get bleed lines, meaning like your ink bleeds outside that black line into your background. You're fine. Go over as many times as you need to. Typically, I'm a two-timer. I do it twice and I'm done with it. With this one, it wasn't the case. This one I ended up, kind of messing around with it until I was happy with it. So in order to kind of fix those areas that I don't really love, I'm going to use the colorless blender. I also decided, because remember we're trying to work in threes, I decided to do the paint that was on the paintbrush as pink, and then also the label on this tube over here, I'm going to do pink. So I have the two washi tapes and the scissors are my greens, and then the paintbrushes, which eventually the other paintbrush, I will color that pink as well. I wasn't really sure how I was going to work it, and I wanted to have an option in case I needed a third item to be colored by a different color. So I like to keep my options open, like a lot of options. That's why I pack 16 shirts for like a 4-day trip. I like my options. But that it will eventually end up pink, and then so I'll have that, like the tube, the puddle, and the paintbrushes will all be pink. I left a little bit of a highlight on that as well. Here's where we're going to go in with the colorless blender and just kind of clean up that area so the highlight is a cleaner look. Because really when you see a light shining on something or reflecting off of, it is not a blurry line. It's very sharp. And a lot of times I think we get very nervous doing anything that is very sharp in crafting, because it's, you got to commit to it. It's a definite, and sometimes that can be very scary. I'm going to do the bristles on the paintbrush with a couple of grays and a black. Basically, I added very minimal shading underneath where the paint is and where it's coming out from the paintbrush. And then I just used the black to draw in a couple of lines or striations that would look like bristles. The third color I'm going to bring into this card is actually going to be a blue-green, because I just thought it would be super pretty with the pink and like the neon green. I thought that would be just super cute. Outside of my scissors, none of my things are actually this color. I have a T-square ruler that's clear, and then I have one that I used for years. I don't even know what happened to it. That was just a plain ruler that was a bright yellow that I paid approximately 59 cents for at the dollar store. I am not fancy. I am not fancy. So for the ruler, I'm just adding some shading around where the paintbrushes are going to sit on top of that. And then just from the bottom, because my light source is in the top right-hand corner, those things would be darker toward the bottom. That just makes more sense. And then also, again, remember, I'm trying to work in those threes. So as I'm going through and doing this, I'm keeping in mind the objects that I'm coloring and where the next couple of things are going to be. So I don't just have like 3 teal things next to each other and 3 green things next to each other. They should be, design-wise, if you can work in what we call the visual triangle, that is ideal. So not so much the pink things, because they're almost like diagonal across the card, but definitely the green, where there's one in the top left, one in the middle right, and one in the bottom center right. Like that's creating a visual triangle there. I'm going to do this envelope teal as well. I want to call it pool, because some of my favorite envelopes are the Hero Arts, like the pool colored envelopes. I just think they're super pretty, and I want to use them all the time. Here I struggled a little bit trying to figure out where my shading was going to be, so you could see me using the marker as my light source, and trying to figure out as far as like the envelope where the pieces are folded over, like where those shadows would or wouldn't be. I did add a little bit of a shadow underneath that washi tape that would seal the envelope, which is super cute when people do, by the way. Some, there's people who mail me cards and they, even though they already licked it or whatever, I don't lick envelopes. I gotta be honest with you. Watch this documentary one time. See, this is how we get off on these tangents. I watched this documentary one time where it said basically cockroaches really into laying their eggs in the glue that is used on envelopes because it's sweet. And so they super like that. And then that just completely wigged me out forever and ever. And now I won't lick them. Like even at work when I take bond money, I always tape them, like, because I don't know how long they've been sitting on the shelves. Now I know like my card envelopes I'm less worried about that. But yeah, just totally gross. The whole thought of it just grosses me out. Speaking of bugs, I had a bee land on me today. This is the most random voiceover ever. My apologies. But this is legit how my brain works. So I have an irrational fear of bees. Like, I realize that it's completely irrational, and I actually am terrified because honeybees because everybody's just murdering them willy-nilly, that they're going to be extinct and then we won't have any honey, and that makes me terribly nervous because I don't want that to happen. I love honey, and I also love flowers and oxygen, all of those things. But anywho, it landed on me today. There was a little bee that landed on me today, and I did not completely freak out. So super proud of myself on that part of it. But I totally wanted to. Like on the inside, I wanted to just completely panic because when I was a kid, kids are so mean. Ugh, makes me so nervous for my son. Kids are so mean. But basically, there was a boy on the bus who put I imagine what he thought was a dead bee in my hair. And I've always had long hair my whole life. And it stung my hand because guess what? The bee wasn't dead. And so just ever since then, I've had just like this completely irrational fear of bees. But whatever. It wasn't the bee's fault. The kid was just mean. So yeah, that happened out on my deck today, and I did not panic. So that was a brave girl moment, right? Can we get some props for being a brave girl? The last thing that I'm doing here is coloring the paintbrushes and the colored pencil, and I'm doing that purple, again, working in that threes. Everything, pretty much adding shading to the left-hand side, leaving the right-hand side lighter because that's where the light would be. At some point, I have been filling in these sequins with the lightest purple that I used, or violet, and then now I'm going to go back in with the lightest pink that I had used, just because I thought it would match and be pretty. The lightest color I used for the desk, which is an E53, is what I filled in the colored pencils with. I didn't add any other shading. And then here's where we're going to go back and get that little bit of pink paint that I wasn't sure if I was going to need. And then you guys know this. I outline everything. This is, again, not a surprise. I love a bold black outline. This is no exception to the rule. So using my EK Success journaling pen, went in and outlined all of the things. Yes, I mean all of the things. I literally did all of the things. And then I'm going to go in and add in a couple of highlights with my white gel pen just to kind of make sure those stand out on the tube, on the scissors, on the little metal parts on the paintbrushes. And then I also used it to just make sure that the polka dots on that washi tape, which how cute is that, those little polka dots, were nice and white, and that they stood out from the background. And here I'm like trying to figure out like where this needs to go because, I got to think about it too. I added a little bit of white highlight on those, on the paint because I didn't want to do it with the colorless blender. I added some clear Wink of Stella to just about all of the things that I could think of. I added it to the sequins. I added it to the label on the paint, to the blades of my scissors. I went kind of back and forth about whether or not to add it to the sentiment. And then I decided, who wouldn't want pink glitter paint? I mean, honestly, pink glitter paint is beautiful. So who wouldn't want that? My mom is actually wearing right now pink glitter nail polish because my son picked it out. Like, he's got great taste. So I did all of that. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is, because I wanted those sequins to be a little bit shinier, I am going to cover them with Glossy Accents. Other than that little bit of raised dimension, everything on here is a 1-layer card. Speaking of that, if you took my Alt New class at Alt New Academy, the 1-layer Wonders card, I appreciated it. I genuinely enjoyed the class, even with everything else that was going on. It gave me something to look forward to, all of your beautiful creations. And so that's it. That's the card. I will be back soon. I promise. I'm not going to go MIA again. With another video. Thank you guys so much for being patient with me and for joining me today, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.